I'm in Vancouver right now, but I couldn't resist covering this story because it's just so funny. So, as of 20 minutes ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just removed Randy Boissonnault from the Liberal government cabinet. I don't know why this guy was a cabinet minister in the first place, but Randy used to be our Minister of Employment and Workforce, or whatever it was. And he's been plagued with scandals for about 3 or 4 months now. You probably already know about the whole Other Randy thing, where he's running this fake healthcare firm with some of his friends. He's claiming to be Indigenous to get better access to government contracts. They're not even fulfilling the government healthcare contracts. They're just acting as a stupid middleman organization that takes government contracts because of his connections to the Liberal Party and then selling them to other people who can actually fulfill them. He was a Liberal MP between 2015 and 2019, and then he was out of office between 2019 and 2021, and that's when he started all of this healthcare firm stuff. But he kept carrying it on after he was already reelected and acting as a cabinet minister, and that's where all this Other Randy stuff came from, because he had to blame his corruption on somebody else, and he said it was just another guy named Randy, which was obviously a lie. Now, I have to give credit here to Anthony Koch because this man called it as tightly as you could possibly call it. Angelo Isidoro, the director of the BC Conservative Party's campaign, actually clipped this together because it was hilarious how well it lined up. He said, "Shot chaser," because Anthony Koch said Randy Boissonnault will be out of cabinet by the end of this week. That was 6 minutes ago at the time that this was screenshot. And then 1 minute ago, Robert Fife, PMO statement. The Prime Minister and MP Randy Boissonnault have agreed that Mr. Boissonnault will step away from cabinet effective immediately. Mr. Boissonnault will focus on clearing the allegations made against him. Minister Jeanette Petitpas Taylor will temporarily assume his position. I don't know how to say French people's names, even if that's not a French person. I don't know. I don't care because I'm bad at pronouncing names and I'm never going to get better at it. But the funny thing about this was that there was already just cause to remove Randy months ago, even before all of the cocaine Randy and nose candy Randy stuff already came out. That was something that was reported 3 days ago by the National Post and other outlets saying that they were literally this fake global health imports firm that Randy and his weirdo friends were running. I have to highlight what his friend looks like. Steven Anderson, who looks like a man who invented cocaine back in the 70s, that those guys also were sharing a mailing address with someone who was implicated in a cocaine bust that recently happened. It's nuts what's been going on. But there was already good enough reason to get rid of Randy Boissonnault. The amount of government graft, taking contracts that he had no ability to actually fulfill just to sell them to other people, saying that he was an Indigenous to get a leg up on his competition for these contracts. But the real reason that Randy Boissonnault seems to have been kicked out was effectively woke reasons. That Randy Boissonnault had this tape come out yesterday, which seems to be the tipping point, where in the midst of him saying, "Oh, I've just been misspeaking. I'm not actually Indigenous. I never tried to say I was Indigenous. I just said I was a non-status adopted Cree person," even though that heavily implies he's Cree, not just somebody who isn't Cree, who at one point was adopted by a Cree family, or a family who's Métis, who has a Cree connection. But he was really kicked out because of this tape that came out yesterday, where he gets up on stage and he then calls himself Strong Eagle Man, basically saying, "I'm Indigenous. I'm Indigenous because my Indigenous name means Strong Eagle Man." And my favorite response to Randy Boissonnault being removed from cabinet was from my colleague Daniel Boardman, who sometimes does streams with me in his own videos. He said "Eagle down" as soon as Randy Boissonnault was removed from cabinet. But here is the tape that basically got this guy removed from cabinet. This was shortly after he was reelected back in 2021. I do like the cheeky edit people have done of like showing him like putting the hand sanitizer on his hands. It's just so performative.
Well, thanks very much, Chief Mooring. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for that kind introduction. It's always great to be home and see so many familiar faces. Tanse, bonjour, tawau. That means guests, you are welcome. There is room here. Moscow, kehiyu, netsigasun. My name is Randy Boissonnault. I'm the Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance, but I'm also known as Strong Eagle Man in the Cree community. And I'm delighted to be here at Enoch Cree Nation, Chief. And I would like to acknowledge the territory that we are on is on Treaty 6 lands. And I'd like to recognize Chief Billy Morin for your hospitality and your partnership across so many files on behalf of your people and on behalf of Indigenous peoples in this part of Turtle Island.
He's so performative. And the funny thing there is he was acknowledging Chief Billy Morin, who himself is now a Conservative Party nominee for one of the ridings up in Edmonton. I think it's the new riding in Edmonton that he's going to be the candidate for. But everything he's saying there is heavily implying that he's Indigenous, saying, well, here's some Cree I'm speaking, and this means this. And it's like you only usually would say that, or you'd assume someone would say that because the whole point is that they have personal expertise. This person is Cree themselves. They are acting like, for the non-Indigenous people in the room, he is your guide to Indigenous culture because he is Strong Eagle Man. But this is probably why Justin Trudeau kicked him out of cabinet, is that Randy Boissonnault has now made, committed crimes against the woke, that you're not supposed to pretend that you're Indigenous, especially in this manner. You're not supposed to be pretending to be Cree. So it wasn't the corruption. It wasn't stealing taxpayer money for fake, stealing taxpayer money for fake contract fulfillment. It wasn't the lying. It wasn't the connection to the person with the cocaine. It was, he did this. He wasn't woke enough. He committed crimes against the woke. And I have to actually just highlight another tweet here from somebody I know who I think that this sums it up quite well, the media coverage of this. And this was actually before he was actually kicked out of caucus or kicked out of cabinet. Let's be clear, there was a lot of time to cover this story, especially after that tape broke overnight. It's an easy rip and read story. You take the tape down, of him saying that he's Strong Eagle Man, and the CBC and other legacy media outlets could easily do 20 minutes on how that shows that Randy's lying. He doesn't just misspeak. He obviously is trying to portray himself as Indigenous, like Elizabeth Warren down in the U.S. But Brandon Maz here says, I've been tuning into CBC for 2 hours this morning. So far, 0 minutes spent on fraudster Randy Boissonnault. This is the third time they are talking about Matt Gaetz as U.S. Attorney General and smearing him. Defund the CBC. And I think that's a great point to make. Where was the coverage? Where was the coverage of this big blockbuster scandal? If a conservative even has a hair out of place on their heads, the CBC and other legacy media outlets will have panels on just to talk about that person. Well, are they going to get kicked out of caucus by Pierre Poilievre? Oh, they said something pro-life. Maybe we should hang them. And Randy Boissonnault is absolutely tripping all over scandals. And whenever the media covered it, it would be like, covering the conservatives are going after Randy Boissonnault. They are alleging that he's corrupt, and they don't cover it in a very direct, sharp cutting manner that you would assume would be appropriate at this time. It's always soft and weak. And so the one thing I do want to see if I can pull up here is the can I find the Randy Donut video right now? I didn't prepare this ahead of time, but it's really funny. Oh, yes, we have to. I can't play this because of the copyright music, which you might have heard right there for a second. But we need to end Randy's career right here as a cabinet minister with this hilarious video of him eating a donut because he was trying to get back at MP Rude or whatever for pointing out that the paper lids that Tim Hortons was giving people were awful. And so he made this crazy video where he has pop music playing while he sensually eats a donut and sips coffee, which was really ironic. And also notice that he's wearing an Indigenous bead necklace right there as well. Not trying to imply that he might be an Indigenous gentleman. he's just so cringy. He's just so cringy. And might I point out that even in this video, when he was trying to mock conservative MP for taking issue with paper lids that Tim Hortons was giving out in certain parts of the country, that he himself could not get, he was not using a paper lid, despite how fantastic they supposedly are. Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. It's good that the ballad of Randy Boissonnault is basically over at this point. He was a funny person to talk about for a while, but we have other funny liberal MPs to talk about. So if you guys want to support the show, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support the legal fund that we're running, make sure to donate to the Give, Send, Go legal fundraiser in the description of the video below, as well as linked at the top of the comments. And if you want my recommendations for leadership or nomination races, provincial and federal around the country, sign up on my website, also linked in the description and pinned to the top of the comments, WyattClaypool.com. And if you sign up to my contact list there, once I have enough people on that list, I can start kind of recommending leadership candidates in places like Manitoba and New Brunswick coming up. Or if there's, hotly contested nominations, I can kind of wade in on which candidates I like, who's the most conservative, who's the most competent, and kind of say how I'd be voting if I happen to be in that particular jurisdiction. Or if, obviously if there's nominations going on where I live, I will also be wading into my local area as well. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Have a good one.